Oh wow, it's one of those rare moments where the stars align and I get to make a video for a show I really want to talk about while it's still airing, without other crap getting in the way. Sorry, my Patreon supporters have spoken. My hands are tied here. Well, while I get these restraints undone, you should check out that card at the top. I do put out polls for what I'm working on next. Could also, hit the thumbs up or down button and subscribe, I don't know, while we're sitting here. Got that done? Alright, so where futuristic sci-fi and grimy 1950s throwback aesthetic collide, characters you feel drawn to immediately, and some action to spice up the final product even further, today's series is bursting at the seams with something to like, from settings, story, and hype, packing a ton of personality into a neat little package. Let's dive right into looking at Deca-Dence. And minor spoilers for how this series reframes itself from episode 2 onwards. The basic rundown is planet Earth has been invaded by these massive killer monsters called Gadol. These things come in a variety of shapes and sizes with a bunch of different attacks that are pretty good at killing humans. Oh, and for good measure, they create anti-gravity fields around them for defense. But luckily, their blood is a vital resource for humanity. So humans band together and create a massive tank fortress the size of a city called Deca-Dence, with either 2 castes or subspecies depending on how you want to dice it. Tankers, the average humans who live in Deca-Dence and do the grunt work while surviving, and gears, who you may have noticed have something up with them because they're different colors, and are battle crazy. It's here that we meet our main characters. Natsume, a girl whose father was killed by Gadol and aspires to fight them like he did by joining the warrior class called the Powers along with the Gears, and Kaburagi, her boss when she didn't make it into the Powers, finding herself working as an armor repairman for Deca-Dence. But where Natsume is a spunky girl out to prove herself and save the human race, her boss is coasting through life doing his job until he finally dies. Sounds morbid, sure. But when they fall off Deca-Dence and get into a fight, we see Kaburagi as a badass at fighting Gadol, which leads Natsume to pressuring him to train her so she can join the Power. That's pretty bog standard for an anime plot. A story of a misfit undesirable proving her worth and turning the system on its head. But that's only half the story. As we find out, Gadol aren't an invading force, but a manufactured power source whose harvesting has been turned into an MMO-style game for cyborgs floating in space. The Gears looking weird? Yeah, that's because they're player characters, and the tankers are meant to be the NPCs. Kaburagi is a disgraced player serving as a bug fixer for the system, and when Natsume finds him doing that, he realizes she's one of the bugs he's meant to fix. But with her growing on him, he decides to give the whole caring thing a shot again, so he trains her. While that could be subversive for the sake of it, and honestly would have destroyed a worse written series, it turns a deeper lens inward here. Rather than just being a standard anime plot about an underdog working her way up, it adds a redemption story running in the background. 2 common story archetypes that resonate with viewers melding into a single narrative. One that doesn't follow a one-to-one story beat for its 2 protagonists, showing highs for one and lows for the other to drive home why you should care about them. That varied pace between the 2 arcs is damn smart, making the plot feel more dynamic, even using different art styles for the 2 so it feels like 2 separate stories interwoven that impact one another, which is key. Natsume's actions and words directly impact Kaburagi's outlook and motivation, while he, as a mentor, shapes Natsume's growth. That's certainly a step above most of the writing I see in the medium, but I feel that same genius can be a detriment. When it takes that leap of showing the audience that Deca-Dence is essentially a game, it gives some tonal whiplash on what was an oddball, but otherwise serious story to that point. It skirts the risk of undercutting Natsume's plight by way of, "It's just a game, bruh." Luckily for Natsume, it's real. Her life and the lives of her friends matter to her. And later, she matters to Kaburagi, so he doesn't want her to die either. That dismisses the idea of it just being a game by showing Kaburagi's investment. From that point onward, whether Natsume is a real person on the surface or a piece of code in a computer doesn't matter for him. It's a direct analog for how audiences identify with characters. And that's a pretty solid way of exploring, get ready for some big words here, verisimilitude, immersion, and parasocial relationships. Things people grapple with when engaging with all forms of media. But what does the series actually say about those concepts? Well, judging by how Kaburaki acts towards Natsume, and shifting his perspective on the system itself, I would say the franchise advocates for their efficacy. His relationship with Natsume helped him sympathize with tankers, changing his outlook. Animation for this series is pretty good. For those uninitiated, the studio behind this one, Nut, did the saga of Tanya the Evil, which had some pretty amazing scenes in it. That carries over here. The fact that both rely on air combat and quick maneuvers through death-defying situations might have something to do with it, but that doesn't take away from how nice these action scenes look. And even the moments of scenery porn show an astounding amount of thought was placed into the world itself, fleshing out the post-apocalyptic Mad Max diesel punk vibe on the surface, or the cartoony spaceship segments that show how detached the reality of the gears is from Deca-Dence. The moment-to-moment stuff may not be as stylistically charged, but the connective tissue doesn't always have to be. When something important is happening in the series, choosing to showcase it in the best light is what matters. And for the fights and emotional beats, the cinematography is on point, utilizing lighting, camera movements, and meaningful angles to highlight those aspects. So, is Deca-Dence worth your time? Yeah, definitely. It's been a long time since I've seen a series so packed with raw world building that conveys itself through the art, while still managing a good story about characters I care about, and throwing in a twist that upends everything I thought I knew about the series that also didn't destroy my enjoyment. If you're a fan of diesel punk, action, subversive storytelling, or just wants something besides the typical shonen or ecchi comedy this season, Deca-Dence is my prescription. I guess that sounds kinda kinky without context. Anyway, check it out, because it's definitely worth your time. Hey, you made it to the end of the video. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, and do all the other YouTube stuff to help the channel grow. I know I plugged all this stuff at the beginning, but it just doesn't feel right unless I do it at the end, too. You can also join my Patreon and pick up some extra perks. So yeah, thanks for watching.